Hello YouTube, welcome to part 9 of the Educated Barbarian dedicated to the meditations. This is an especially chilly episode. It is 0 degrees in here and I might have a few fingers fall off during this reading. We are starting book 5 today. Last time I cut a little bit abruptly because I wanted to start this one fresh. And it begins as such. In the morning, when you find yourself unwilling to rise, have this thought. I arise to the proper business of men, and shall I repine at setting about that work for which I was born and brought into the world? Am I equipped for nothing but to lie among the bedclothes and keep warm? When I was a kid, something that my parents would always tell me when I woke up was to count my limbs, as strange as it sounds, and if I could find all of my limbs, then I should be happy. I was also told that since I woke up in a bed with a roof above my head, and food ready for me, then I had really nothing to complain about. And in truth, they were right. And it's something that I try to live by every single day. And so this is a teaching of gratitude that Marcus Aurelius is extending upon us, where he's telling you basically, you've woken up today in the world of men. What should you do? Should you just stay in bed and be lazy and do nothing, or rise? What were you born to do? If you were born to just stay in bed and do nothing, you would be born as a slug. You were born as someone with legs and therefore you should use them. But you say, it is more pleasant. Is pleasure then the object of your being and not action and the exercise of your powers? Do you not see the smallest plants, the sparrows, the ants, the spiders, the bees, all doing their part and working for order in the universe, as far as in them lies? And will you refuse the part in this design which is laid to you? Will you not pursue the course which accords with your natural best? So going from the bed, this is a two-step argument, as often with Marcus Aurelius, where he's telling you, okay, do you accept the idea that you're not supposed to be laying in bed? And if you say yes, he's telling you, okay, well then this also means that if you're not going to strictly pursue pleasure as its own end, this must mean that your nature is not the pursuit of pleasure. It's something else entirely. And in this case, it's being productive. And he correlates that with the fact that you scarcely see animals not following their instinct, which is actually not true. They found out that for example, if you look at an ant's nest, 50% or more of the ants do nothing all day. That being said, I think that what they haven't discovered yet is that it's because the ants take turns, because they really don't have a way to know which ant is which, so they have no idea if an ant is always lazy. And for the most part, you'll see that with animals. Lazy members of the community don't get fed. They quickly die off. So it might just be a productivity thing where they rotate the workers, but for you, you're your own person and no one is going to rotate with you. Meaning that when you are awake and done with sleeping, it is time to actually be active. You say, I must have rest. Assuredly. But nature appoints a measure for rest, just as for eating and drinking. In rest you go beyond these limits and beyond what is enough. But in action you do not fill the measure and remain well within your powers. You do not love yourself. If you did, you would love your nature and its purpose. So, I like the balance here because too many people who have that warrior's mindset are going to tell you, oh, I never rest is for the weak, I sleep when I'm dead. Well, that's entirely stupid. Rest is a natural predisposition of humans and of any beings. Working involves resting. It's part of the process, it's part of the job. But to an extent, what is said here is that if you accept rest as being something necessary, you accept work as being something just as necessary. Because they're part of the same natural cycle and they complete one another. I have personally found myself that rest is never sweeter than when I have worked before. And for example, I'm the type of person that if I rest too long for several days, I get antsy because I feel like I don't deserve the rest. Because what am I resting from? It's the same for training. You're taking rest days, but a rest day is a rest day from something. Because if it wasn't, it just means you're skipping, you're not training. And so it's a mindset to apply in your life to determine whether you are actually just seeking pleasure for pleasure's sake, or if pleasure is a byproduct of you following your own nature. And if it is, you should be perfectly fine with it. Don't be anxious to rest when rest is needed, Be anxious to rest when it is not. And I like that he ends by saying that if you rest all the time and you don't work, it's a show that you don't love yourself. I have found that productivity is linked to self-worth and to pride. And the people who are the most lazy are people who tend to hate themselves. Because you express who you are not when you're resting, but through action, through being a productive member of society, because that's when you're awake. You have no character when you're sleeping or when you're resting. You're larva. You don't exist. You need to have that jolt of energy to grow as an individual and to be able to then love what you created with your growth. How easy it is to thrust away and blot out each impression that is disturbing and unfit, and forthwith to enjoy perfect tranquility. I will put my gloves on because I literally felt my fingers freezing. So, turning the pages is going to be a challenge, but I love challenges. So this is a little bit more general, but the idea is once your spirit has been set, rejecting anything that your spirit doesn't accept as fit is easy. And I sort of agree with that to an extent, meaning that to me, it also means that once the spirit has accepted what should be seen as logical, it is going to have a certain reaction to things that are illogical. And it might be because I'm a step behind. The next step would be acceptance of what is not falling within the limits of the mind to be outside of the control of the mind. And then maybe that's what it's trying to convey here. Oh boy. It's like a gorilla trying to read a book. Oh my god. Okay. This is not gonna work. And winter only lasts 8 months here. Yay. Judge no speech or action unworthy of you, which is consistent with nature. Be not dissuaded by any consequent criticism or censure from others. But if the speech or action be honorable, judge yourself worthy to say or do it. Those who criticize you have their own conscience and their own motives. These you are not to regard, but follow a straight course guided by your own nature and the nature of the universe, both of which point the same way. So I appreciate the first portion because without it, it would be easy to misconstrue what he says as censorship. Because a lot of what the Stoicism is rejecting things. But it's not trying to cancel them or negate them. It's just not letting them apply to us. What is said here is that if you dislike a speech, sorry. I think my brain is freezing as well. So it's part of that, but if the speech or action be honorable, okay. So basically, that's the first portion, and then the second portion is, do not, even before that happens, let any speech be disregarded before you actually applied your mind to it, as long as it's consistent with nature, which also means your nature. And do not rely on what other people tell you of that thing before you judge it yourself. That was the thing that a bit confused me. So it's something that we do a lot, actually. Yeah, I do it too, where we're going to get information from other people about a certain topic or a certain person, and we're going to go into knowing who that thing is with preconceived notions in mind. And that is damaging because in reality, you're not applying your own nature to your ability to know what that thing is. You're letting other people do it. And same for the receiving of critiques. It's fine to be critiqued. You don't have to let the critique be a part of you if you don't want to. You can accept them if you find them to be sound, but if they're not sound, they have no power over you because they're not aligned with your own nature. Be sincere, be dignified, be painstaking, scorn pleasure, repine not of fate, need law, be kind and frank, love not exaggeration and vain talk, strive after greatness, So these are all of the virtues. First off, all of these we can talk about because be sincere, so always tell your version of the truth according to your nature. Be dignified. This one is something that I align with perfectly, but being dignified varies from person to person. For me, being dignified would be not being noisy, not being an inconvenience to others. The noisy part, I already lost a lot of people, especially, I mean, no offense, but in the US, people are extremely loud. French people tend to be loud as well. But for me, when you're in a public space, you shouldn't be heard. You should be seen, not heard. Dignification can come from other means too. It can be kindness to others. It can be politeness to others. Be painstaking, so hardworking. Scorn pleasure, important to an extent because it falls within the context of what I already explained, where the Stoic doesn't reject pleasure. The Stoic rejects pleasure for the pursuit, for pleasure's sake. You're never going to seek something because it's pleasurable. You're going to seek something that is going to give you pleasure as a byproduct. So, for example, you should never eat a food because it gives you pleasure. You should eat the food because it's beneficial, and if it gives you pleasure on top of it, why not? Between a food that is a 4 out of 10 on the beneficial scale and a food that's 6 out of 10 and pleasurable on top of that, you're not going to scorn that pleasure to get the thing that is not pleasurable. Stoicism is not a masochistic ideology. It's not rejecting anything that is pleasurable. It's just that it refuses to seek it out. Repine not at fate. So fate comes as it comes, we accept it and we grow stronger from it. Need low, so being frugal, being minimalistic, perfectly aligned with Stoicism. Don't let the materialism of the world, the consumerism of the world, lead you out of the path. The only thing you need in this world is you and the nature that made you, and that's it. Any plastic toy outside of that it's nice to have, but it's worthless at the end. Be kind. So the Stoic is not an asshole. The Stoic is nice. He extends the hand. And frank, which could be honest, it could be direct. Because you could be honest, but not be perfectly straightforward with it. You could be, you could navigate a bit around it. I would say that this is the value that is going to be the toughest to implement as you live in today's society because people hate it. People would much rather have you bullshit for 20 minutes than say what you mean in an underhanded way than just say it outright. I think that it's a value that you need to have. So just say it. If people can handle it, they can go see somewhere else. Love not exaggeration and vain talk. I like hyperboles, but it is true that you can really lose yourself in them because in reality an hyperbole is that close to a lie. And the more you stack hyperboles on top of them, the more you are going closer to a lie. So be very careful with that because an hyperbole is not a faithful representation of reality. Vain talk, so don't say anything that doesn't matter. Words have meanings and the meaning that you impair on them has value. So spare it and don't waste it, don't spend it when it's not necessary. Strive after greatness, so pursue greatness at all times. Do you not see how many virtues you might show of which you are yet content to fall short, though you have not the excuse that they are absent or that you are unfit for them? Are you driven by some want in your equipment to be careless, to be miserly, to be a flatterer, to reproach your body with your own faults, to cringe to others, to be vainglorious, to have all of the restlessness in your soul? No, by the gods, you might have escaped these vices long ago. All your fault, then, is that you are somewhat slow and dull of comprehension. He's calling you an idiot. This you should strive to correct by exercise, neither neglecting your dullness nor taking a mean pleasure in it. Okay, we have to go back because there's so much pears, I don't know how to pronounce that, nuggets. There's so many nuggets of wisdom in here. So, do you not see how many virtues you might show, who might exist in your nature, of which you are yet content to fall short, though you have not the excuse that they are absent or that you are unfit for them? So basically saying, if you're not already a perfect model and you're not already representing those virtues in a sense, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. You don't have the excuse to say, oh, I don't have it. It means that they are dormant within you, but that they can be awakened. Or that you're unfit for them. No one is unfit for being frank, because being frank is something that you learn how to be. Are you driven by some want in your equipment, so your body and your nature, to be callous, to be miserly? So callous would be not confrontational, because confrontation is not a bad thing, but to be confrontational for no reason. For example, someone said something, you want to be a smartass, and you said something. You didn't add anything to the debate, you just tried to create a quarrel. To be miserly, so there's a difference between being frugal and being miserly, and I think that the difference would mostly be in how you extend it to others. Because you can't really be miserly to yourself in a sense, because this type of trait extends to others. It means that you stop being generous. To be a flatterer, so never flatter people. The Stoic refuses compliments. He doesn't let them get to him, and therefore he doesn't extend them. Now, does it mean that you're never going to actually compliment people? No, but you're never going to do it to make them feel pleasure, if that makes sense. You're going to do it to make them feel accomplished, to make them feel like they should continue what they're doing, but never to content them. To reproach your body with your own thoughts. This one hits home for the bodybuilding community on YouTube, for the fitness community on YouTube, where anytime someone can't accomplish something, it's the fault of their body. Oh, I have bad genetic. In reality, when you say I have bad genetic, it's you could be saying my mom and my dad suck and they gave me a shitty body. That's what it means. Never reproach your body. It's your fault, and you is this. You were given a vessel to do whatever you want with it. It's not the vessel's fault if you're a poor captain. To cringe to others, so to refuse the company of others, to have, how do we say that in English? A condescending attitude towards them. All of that is just like being callous. It puts people off. There is no point, and it has no benefits too. To be vainglorious, so to seek fame for the sake of fame, to have all of this restlessness in your soul. The Stoic is content with what he has because he understands that a new day will bring opportunities to get more. And if you're restless, most likely it means you're not working. Because once you're working, you're not restless anymore. You might have escaped these vices long ago if you wanted, as he says. All your fault then that you are somewhat slow and dull of comprehension. The speed at which you gain those values is correlated with how much you want them. If you never want them, you'll never have them. You should strive to correct by exercise. So all of these values you are not born with, they exist in you. You have to make them grow. Neither neglecting your dullness, nor taking a mean pleasure in it. That's important. So neglecting your flaws and not working on them is already an issue, but some people take pleasure in them. And these are the people who say, oh, I'm so terrible at this and blah, blah, blah. They fish for compliment. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to turn their inability to be virtuous into something that is going to get them a sense of virtue by receiving compliments and people who pat them on the head. I personally, when people do that, love to shut them down. When someone tells me, oh, I'm terrible, I say, yeah, you're right, you're terrible. Without even, laughing about it, because this person is going to stay where they are, stagnating, until someone comes and calls them out on it. And if you have the best of this person in your mind, you should do it. You should be the person to do it. And we're going to end with this last quotation. Some men, when they have done you a favor, are very ready to reckon up the obligation they have conferred. Others are not so forward in their claims, but yet in their minds consider you their debtor, and well know the value of what they have done. A third sort seem to be unconscious of their service. They are like the vine, which produces its clusters and is satisfied when it has yielded its proper fruit. The horse, when he has run his course, the hound, when he has followed the track, the bee, when it has made its honey, and the man, when he has done good to others, make no noisy boast of it, but set out to do the same once more, as the vine in its season produces its new clusters again. Beautiful, first off, beautiful writing. My personal policy when I lend someone money is that I consider that I'm never going to get that money back. I'm giving it, it's not a loan, and I only loan my good friends, because I know for a fact that they will repay me. I don't even think about it. I know that the money will come back eventually. And that, I think, is what makes the action pure. If you lend someone money and you expect them to give it back to you at some point, it's unpure. And I think that the exchange of resources, when not in the fashion of a trade, is critical when you look at it in terms of human nature, because when you extend a hand, you're not going to write it down in a little notebook and say, I helped that person on that day, they better help me back. Because it just means that you did that out of interest. And interest is also the reason why there is a large portion of Catholicism, there's a large portion of cultures still in the world to this day that consider usury to be evil, is because that's what usury is. It's loaning something, hoping you not only get it, but you get back more because there's interest on it. And if we refer back to that, Marcus Aurelius clearly calls it out for what it is, which is unpure. And it's more than just unpure, because it's a perversion of something that should be beautiful. It's helping others. It's being part of the community and helping your fellow man. And now you're trying to turn that into a business. That's what is making it so dark and so repulsive. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Should we then be among those who in a manner know not what they do? Assuredly, but this very thing implies intelligence, for it is a property of the unselfish man to perceive that he is acting unselfishly, and surely to wish his fellow also to perceive it. True, but if you misapprehend my saying, you will enter the ranks of those of whom I spoke before. There are two are led astray by specious reasonings. But if you have the will to understand what my principle truly means, fear not that in following it you will neglect the duty of unselfishness. As always, I think with good writers, they always manage to find the weak spot in their argument and they plug it before you even can get to it. And what he's saying here is that he's saying, okay, but if you're the reader, you might think, okay, but I know that I helped the person, I'm not stupid. And so by knowing that I did that, I get a sense of accomplishment because I did my duty as a man. But doesn't that make me also part of these other categories that are evil? Because in reality, I got pleasure from it. And in my mind is the idea that this person is owing me something. And Marcus Aurelius is saying, yes, you are men, you are all-knowing, and you have intelligence, and therefore you have memory to retain what you did. But the difference is that you will not use this memory to try and get the thing back. You will use it in your head to know, I have done what I have done, and I will continue doing so. There's a quote that I really liked from someone that I forgot. If you know, tell me in the comments. Prevent me from not doing all the good I can do now, as I may not pass this way ever again. That's sort of the mindset behind it. You do good actively and of your own free will whenever necessary without expecting anything in return. And because you had this ability in the first place, you retain the ability to continue doing that in the future. And I love that Marcus Aurelius presents that as something that needs to be thought about, because it's true that the two concepts could be misunderstood, but if you think about it, it's crystal clear. And I'm going to end here. My Achilles tendons feel like they're made of glass. I will see you next week. Thank you for watching.